Welcome to today's webinar. I'm really excited today to discuss how Snowflake uses intent-driven insights for a hyper-personalized approach to ABM. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. We have muted all participants, so if you do have a question, please put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them along the way or at the end of the presentation. We're also recording this webinar and we will be sending out the on-demand recording afterwards for you to rewatch in the comforts of your own home office. So let's introduce the speakers. I'm really excited to introduce Chris Marshall. He is the ABM manager at Snowflake. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Millie and the Bombora team for bringing me on to do this deep dive webinar with you today. I'm Chris Marshall, account-based manager here at Snowflake. I've been here over the past year and a half, and it's just really been working with the ABM team to continue to build out our ABM structure and how we do ABM here at Snowflake. So starting from strategic one-to-one and one-to-many programmatic campaigns that we'll go over, especially using intent tools like Bombora and 6 Sense to be able to really identify a specific set of accounts that we then target using personalized campaigns and content that resonates with you guys. So I'm super excited to be able to share Snowflake's philosophy on ABM and in specific how we use or how we leverage intent data with you today.
Great, thanks, Chris. Appreciate you being here. My name is Millie Resnick, and I am the VP of Product Marketing at Bombora. Bombora is the leading provider of B2B intent data, specifically with our branded company Surge intent data. So we're going to be talking a lot about company Surge intent data today, so we thought we would define it first. So quite simply, company Surge intent data tells you which businesses are researching the products and services that you and your competitors sell. And this is how Bombora helps marketing and sales leaders prioritize their resources to generate more leads, pipeline, and opportunities. And the way that we do this is we understand the usual content consumption behaviors of a business against an intent topic within our taxonomy. So we monitor close to 3 million businesses globally across an intent topic taxonomy of over 8,000 B2B intent topics. And these topics are related to B2B companies, to products, solutions, and trends. And what we're trying to understand is what the normal research behavior looks like between these companies and these topics so that we can identify when there are increases in research behavior, which we call a company surge. And company surge is a buying intent signal that indicates when a company may be in market for a particular B2B product or service and might be a good time for your sales and marketing team to reach out to that prospect. And this signal we make portable to systems of record through integrations that we have with systems of record, including Salesforce, Marketo, and HubSpot. And we've also invested in channel partnerships with over 35 channel platforms, including 6 Sense. And so Chris is really here today to speak about how he uses both Bombora and 6 Sense to hyper-personalize his ABM efforts. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Millie. So quick introduction on Snowflake so I can get that out there. In summary, so companies have been falling short of realizing the potential of their data because it exists in so many different silos, especially with the rise of like the application clouds like Salesforce and Workday, infrastructure clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP. The amount of data that we have to drive our businesses has just exploded. But now that data exists in all these different environments and it's super time consuming to extract value from them. So with the use of the data cloud, we can eliminate all of these silos. So the data cloud is one global unified system connecting companies and data providers to the most relevant data for their businesses. So wherever the data lives, wherever the users live, Snowflake delivers a single platform to be able to access that data. So every customer of Snowflake has access to the data cloud, which then allows you to integrate that data from a wide range of data sources or data types. So let's get into it. ABM at Snowflake. Quick run through of what we do when we look at ABM. So our Snowflake team really exists to facilitate sales-aligned, cross-functional, hyper-focused marketing programs into must-win accounts to gain traction in cold accounts, to accelerate deals where open opportunities exist, and obviously create new opportunities with those Snowflake customer accounts. So that's a lot to really unpack in one statement, but hey, you get out there and we make it happen, right? For those of you who are kind of starting out your ABM journey, you might have your goals of like, okay, cool, let's reach for the stars here when you're starting off, and you might just hit the treetops. But age old saying, but guess what? That might just be enough for you to prove your point, to see how this can work for your team and your company, and that process of seeing this function come to life. So over here, ABM at Snowflake is a core component of Snowflake marketing as a whole. So we're a total account-based organization. Snowflake marketing works as one large team. So when you see an ABM campaign, we do not want it to be that it is only reflective of input from us by using intent or word of mouth from our sales teams, but we also want information, and we also want to work with our friends over at product marketing, partner marketing, customer marketing, and other teams, so that when we release an ABM campaign, it's one cohesive message going out to these accounts. So we work with customer marketing, for example, to dig deeper into what use case a current customer is using currently, and where an ABM campaign can fit in to really increase consumption or feed them the right content as we move into a net new workload. Or hey, if we're really having a problem getting into an account, then why not leverage a partner that is engaged and set up a field marketing event to a particular account or a group of accounts, showing similar intent to make inroads and get sales in that quarterback position. So we're trying to leverage all the information we possibly can by literally getting out of these silos and making it an integrated ABM function. Moving on to engagement, and this is probably something that is super interesting, and we all probably face a similar challenge when it comes to marketers, in specific those who practice ABM, right? So how do we translate these engagement metrics into a complete story that not only explains how ABM impacts the company, but since we want our sales teams to really care, we also want to be able to offer actionable insights of what they can then be leveraging, right? So how do we impact the business beyond an ad or beyond a customized landing page? Is engagement enough for sales as it is? So that's where we want to also provide our sales teams with the insights that we're able to derive from Bombora's intent surge data and the 6sense dark funnel to know what else they can be doing on their end. So once an account becomes known, what insights then become actionable? So to help figure this out, we work with our amazing data science team here in-house to look at every account that is in the ABM funnel. So in addition to looking at metrics like pages visited or events that they may have attended, we also look at the total number of ABM accounts to determine how many accounts are engaging. Out of these accounts, how many accounts are becoming known, how many touches occur on these accounts, and then obviously we want to translate that into meetings and opportunities further down the funnel. When we're looking at scale, let's dial it back one step. And for us, personalization is not just about putting a company name on an ad or a landing page, right? It's about trying to get the right content to the right people at the right time. So when we think about scale over here at Snowflake, we're trying to improve our ABM brand beyond roughly 2,000 one-to-one campaigns in the best way possible. And this is exactly what we're going to cover in detail in this webinar as to how we use intent data to be able to try and enter the buying cycle and try our best to make sure that before we launch an ABM campaign, we only do it after we know something relevant about these accounts. So we're looking to operationalize ourselves better so that we can do more personalized, more relevant, and more consistent campaigns. So we're, as the saying goes, we're trying to adopt the mindset of being able to personalize at scale, right? And once again, going back to many of you who might be on this call who are like, oh, I'm thinking about ABM, I'm not there yet, I'm not as sophisticated. You always want to pay attention to not just how many target accounts you have, but also look at the size of your business and how many accounts really make sense for your sales team. So you might want to look at setting up a tiered system so that you know what account needs what kind of engagement or what resources that goes behind it. So speaking about that tiered system, and that's the perfect segue into my next slide about how we at Snowflake really stay aligned. So to be aligned, we focus on accounts in a tiered system, and we have a purpose behind each layer of accounts that fall into that category. So when we look at our most strategic layer of accounts, so we're thinking multinational juggernauts like Apple or Target. So big, really big accounts that these are accounts for us that we call must penetrate accounts, where we want to gain traction in a scalable, measurable fashion. So in this case, we're not only looking to run an ABM campaign to the account as a whole, but we want to try and target each line of business within an account with relevant campaigns, right? So usually our sales teams at this level cover a handful of accounts. They're global account managers. So that allows us to be extremely focused on creating an account plan with accompanying KPIs to measure progress. We focus on these accounts consistently and collaborate so that we can adjust, plan, and optimize to gain traction in these accounts, right? So for these accounts in specific, we're focused on creating new opportunities in non-customer accounts without any cap ones. We're looking to book meetings in new lines of business or additional meetings for deal acceleration. On the flip side of the coin, for customer accounts, what are we looking to do? So once again, we want to be able to create those meetings and opportunities, not just in new lines of businesses, but also in any subsidiaries of these accounts by making sure that we can also impact consumption. So when it comes to our cross-functional teams, we might want to leverage a partner who has existing relationships for joint motions. We work with the field marketing team to create one-to-one events in specific for these accounts based off of intent. And at all points in time, even our SDRs, they're executing custom net new sequences that are all completely aligned to our ABM messaging. So moving down to the next tier, we look into our enterprise level accounts where we want to discuss the account landscape, right? And where ABM resources would be most beneficial in these accounts. So we review account intelligence data to inform on things like not just intent, but we also want to go through with the AE and with the SDR to see, okay, cool, have you guys also learned something about these accounts? So our main goal in this layer is to really drive awareness and facilitate that engagement in suspect accounts. For a prospect accounts, we want to try and accelerate deals. And a little bonus point here that I would like to add in this section is how our field marketing teams could possibly help on the event sides when we're looking at this here outside of creating a one-to-one event, right? So usually in these accounts, as opposed to our highly strategic one-to-ones, there's not enough of an audience to be able to have just a one-to-one event. So with using Bombora intent data, we try and look at accounts that are showing similar intent based off of geographic region. So with Bombora and 6sense, we create a report that will tell us, okay, cool, for this specific rep, or let's just say a specific region, let's say North Texas, what is the most common intent topic that aligns with our Snowflake workloads that is showing those surges in intent? So having those insights can very easily help your field marketing team plan an event based on that topic, and hopefully it will be that much more successful, right? You always want to look at the baseline and, okay, cool, where are we going from that baseline? Last but not least, and this is what I'm most excited to be talking to you guys about today, is programmatic campaigns, one-to-many, and how we use topics from Bombora to gain traction in these accounts. So I'm just talking to myself over here, but our ambitious goal in this specific one-to-many campaign layer is to make cold calling warm calling for SDRs, right? And that's super out there. Our SDRs are the main drivers of this tier. As we're working with accounts where there has been little or no engagement when it comes to the contacts within an account. So over here, we're looking at the 6sense reach score. We're looking at the buying stage. We're looking at Bombora intent topics to really go after all of these accounts within a common theme.
Cool, Chris. That's really interesting. And I have a couple questions that I'm sure the attendees are dying to ask. So with these tiers that you have, what are the specific attributes that go into how you determine what goes into what an account goes into which tier?
Yeah, so when we're looking at that, and also some of like the KPIs that we want to see, as to say, okay, cool, has ABM been successful? We're looking at, for the strategic one-to-one level, and also for the enterprise one-to-one campaigns, we're looking at net new conversations that we've been able to initiate. We're looking at how many contacts have been added as a result of our ABM campaigns. Of course, we have to look at our impressions and page visits as marketers. And then with our cross-functional teams, we're also looking at sequence responses, right? So, and then of course, meetings and opportunities and pipeline and revenue further down the funnel. In our one-to-many or programmatic tier of accounts, we're once again looking at all of that, but we're also looking at how our intent-based outreach sequences are doing, so we can optimize on that front, right? So we're looking at the SDR outbound book meeting rate and trying to see how much we can influence that. And then of course, pipeline generated and revenue further down the funnel.
Great. Awesome. And my next question, I get this a lot, which is, if you're doing an ABM approach, what do you do with accounts that are outside of this pyramid? Do you do anything with them? And like, what is the sort of, what are the features or the attributes that go into whether or not they like fall into this tier?
Yeah, so typically we try and go after accounts that we know something about, right? So there may be some stragglers out there that we're unable to really see a relevant spike in intent data that really says, hey, do we need to go after this account now as opposed to later on in the year, or when those intent data scores begin to rise? So for the most part, to your question, Millie, we're really looking at accounts that at the very least we know something about before we move them into any one of these campaigns. So moving on to Bombora and 6sense. So let's dive into this and why Snowflake decided we need not just Bombora but 6sense as well. So on this slide, we're going to go over a more reactive campaign. So we've called it Bombora Blast. It's amazing. We've got our sales teams and SDRs super excited about this. So if let me quickly put this out there. If you guys have tools like Bombora at this point, or if you're looking at onboarding Bombora, then You can literally take this information back tomorrow and then flip the switch on and be like, oh, cool, let's start our first ABM intent campaign, right? So I'm a big fan of Bombora and intent topics. And of course, over here at Snowflake, we're always trying to improve. We're always trying to enter sort of uncharted territory and see what we can work with when it comes to that. So quickly, let me give you a few points on why we use Bombora, why we use 6sense, and then why we use both. So in one short sentence, we use Bombora to get a comprehensive understanding for buyers' interests and intent. And as always, we want to make sure that something's actionable, right? So what is actionable to our sales team? So we identify accounts that are surging on Snowflake or top competitors to be able to book meetings and provide direction, not only to sales messaging, but also for our ABM campaigns and also for field marketing event teams. 6sense. We use 6sense to identify and prioritize the best accounts and prospects to reach out to at the right time, right? So it's easier said than done, but that's what we use 6sense for. What is actionable here is we create segments to track buying stages, keywords, engagement activity, and also any changes in these over time. So we're analyzing and measuring the best possible time and strategy for marketing to start campaigns and for sales to begin outreach. And finally, why do we have both? It's not that we're spoiled, but we're lucky to have both of them. By using both, we can create segments to better understand and target in-market accounts on topics that they really care about, using data to deliver these messages to de-anonymized accounts in specific buying stages, right? So with this reactive campaign in mind, I'm really going to take you through a few of the steps that we see that really you need, if not Bombora, then both of them at the same time, right? So when we're looking at account selection, so we use Bombora filters to create segments in 6sense, right? So at the most simple level, all we're looking at over here is to see what Snowflake related topic is scoring above a certain threshold when it comes to Bombora search score. If you're looking at automating something with 6sense email alerts, we can literally get this delivered into the SDR's inbox or your AE's inbox, saying, hey, Miss SDR, hey, Mr. AE, here are the accounts that popped up on a set cadence. And then all they would need to do is no-brainer, put those into their respective outreach sequences, right? On the customized landing page side, how do we make sure that our landing pages are staying dynamic or getting updated without me or the rest of our ABM team having to go in and make sure that, oh, we've got to put this name on there? So step up 6sense personalizer. So we use Uberflip as our content marketing platform and create our landing pages within minutes, right? So 6sense personalizer will automatically pull in your company name based off of 6sense data. And since we're also tagging the content appropriately, we can make sure that the account is getting the right content. So for example, if a visitor is identified by 6sense as being a part of the software and technology industry, the app can automatically display just items that have been tagged in specific to that industry. And then measurement. So I spoke about accounts that we like to maybe try and graduate from the one-to-many campaigns into one-to-one campaigns, right? So when we're measuring any of our one-to-many campaigns, we're always looking at the journey stages in 6sense and trying our best to possibly move any of these accounts from target, awareness, and consideration into a decision stage or purchase stage before we add more focus on them, right? So that's what I mean by graduating, when we move them from one-to-many into a one-to-one account. So I hope that this first slide that I just showed you guys, reactive campaign, hope is just lighting a fire on your end when it comes to the ways that you can really use intent tools to build and launch campaigns that at this point we have it. I'd like to use the word semi-automated. We're not at that point where it's like literally set and forget, right? We all need to keep our jobs at the end of the day when it comes to ABM. So moving on, before we get into a more proactive approach, as I just mentioned, we went into the reactive campaigns that, hey, Bombora says that an account is raising their hand. Let's go ahead and put them into the right campaign. So over here, I popped this on quickly so that you can all see exactly what you need to be looking at before you can launch a campaign, and who are all the key players that we see that are associated with this, right? So in order to be able to clearly identify an account list, we're using intent data in Bombora. So we worked with our Bombora reps to create reports that have pre-built clusters in it. So for example, if an account is looking at data exchanges or data analytics, what use case does that relate to when it comes to how Snowflake can solve that issue for our prospect or our customer? So these clusters directly relate to our intent-based sequences that our SDRs use. So we try and enable them in the best possible fashion so that they're not spending half an hour or an hour looking at a contact and being like, okay, cool, what's the best topic, or what's the best way that I should be reaching out to them. On the account insights, now, once we have a list of accounts that we're going to go after based on a particular topic, we not only want to look at, okay, cool, what's the profile, what's the tech stack. By the way, the best way to be able to get the tech stack apart from tools is hopefully your AE is engaged with a partner or through word of mouth, right? That's probably the best thing that you can get that out there. So we want account insights and we want cross-functional approval. So we want to learn more about the profile, like I said, and we also want to use Sixth Sense, which will tell us the who might be engaging with the accounts. So once we're all in sync, we know exactly what we're going to do with this given set of accounts or our campaign. We know the term, we know the process, we know exactly what part of the process we are all accountable for. So for the most part, as the ABM or the marketer, we're the ones literally doing the heavy lifting and making sure that everything is talking to each other when it comes to all of the tools that we use. On our SDR front, like I said, our ambitious goal is to make cold calling warm calling. So theoretically, we can assume that if we launch a sequence a week or two, so we launch a campaign a week or two before an SDR launches a sequence, we can assume that someone within that account has engaged with an ad or come onto a landing page, and then Sixth Sense will hopefully give us the who behind that, right? So as I was telling Millie this before, teamwork really makes the dream work over here at Snowflake, and it's an integrated function. You don't want to be sitting out there on your little island all by yourself. So programmatic, and this slide is awesome. I will not take credit for this slide. I hope that I'm pretty sure that a majority of you on this call know who Hilary Lupo is. She's the director of ABM. So this is her masterpiece, if we call it. So once again, just to like jog your memory, before we went over a reactive approach, this is the proactive approach. So when it comes to using Bombora, we go after an account once we know, hey, based off of this report of company search scores in a particular topic, this should be a target, right? So we want to get in front of an account before they know Snowflake is really even an option on their end. So where does it all start? And this, as I said, it's going to give you like a little sneak peek into all the tools that we use and all of the different teams that we use as well. So collaboration between the cross-functional teams, AE, SDR, ABMer, we're all on one call. What are we talking about on that call? We're talking about intent. We're talking about topics that accounts have, different topics that are surging. We're talking about a specific set of accounts, and seeing whether we can come up with a common theme to be able to launch these programmatic campaigns, right? So intent data is the base layer that really guides us in our conversation. So I want to highlight one example here of an account that recently closed a deal a couple of months ago, right? So this account happened to be in the travel industry, which I guess was getting a tad bit ignored during the pandemic, given the beating that the industry as a whole was taking, right, over the past year. So through Bombora, we identified that this particular account was looking at one of our competitors, and all of a sudden they started to look at Snowflake. So we identified that surging topic and then built a digital campaign and conducted aligned prospecting and was able to earn a first meeting, right? So I wanted to highlight that part of it because it, at all times, you want to really do our best to understand the most relevant messaging to deliver to accounts at the right time when they're ready for purchase. So that may be along the lines of what Millie, the book that you guys launched when it comes to Blam. So check that out. So on the campaign side, what are we using? What is Snowflake using over here, right? So we're using Growworks and LinkedIn as our ad platforms. Obviously, this is just one of the many use cases that we use them for. And then Uberflip for our custom landing pages and our content hub so that we can build these landing pages in minutes. So in one of the final pieces of the puzzle, as I said before, we're all about our SDRs. We want to be able to help them the best that we possibly can. So we enabled them, if there was a way to summarize this, it would be to really give them the ability to speak the same language that we are doing internally, externally to their prospects. So we have outreach sequences that are set up for them based off of intent topics. So they're ready to rock whenever we hit the green button. So going back to that example that I gave you about the travel company, so that actually resulted in a multi-year deal, high six-figure commit with a sales cycle that just lasted under 2 months. So we were able to actually bring down that sales cycle 2x, if not 3x. Obviously, that varies depending on the size of the account when we're looking at it. So to really summarize that, it's great things happen with a series of small things that are done together. Once again, ABM, collaborative process, not just a digital experience. So what do we see from these proactive one-to-many campaigns, and how are we planning to continue it, right? Obviously, we need to operationalize ourselves to be able to be better aligned when we're doing these national or global campaigns. But last quarter, we had roughly 400 accounts in this. Our SDRs are able to book 90 meetings. So when you look at this 90 meetings, it's actually an account that had a meeting within it. Some accounts have several meetings in it, which would then increase that number. But we were able to double our SDR outbound meeting rate. So this is something that is here to stay when we look at this proactive approach and how we use intent data to really drive that message across and be able to make sure that we're making a business impact when it comes to the revenue and pipeline that we influence down the funnel.
So Chris, I agree with you. This is a very impressive slide. So thanks for sharing it with us. You know, for the attendees that are trying to do something similar, like what parts of these are automated and what parts are manual or semi-automated?
Yeah, so I think I can answer that in probably 3 parts when you're looking at all of the tools and vendors that you see depicted on this slide. So to start off with, where do we get our audiences from, right? So where Bombora and LinkedIn have an API set up, LinkedIn Campaign Manager, you can use third-party audiences. So The way that we set this up is you go into Bombora, you set up a report, you say, hey, this is the theme. And once it crosses a certain surge score, that those accounts will be the ones that fall into LinkedIn, right? So you don't have to go in there and keep changing the audience as and when these accounts pop in and pop out. When we're looking at 6sense, we're building segments based off of Bombora intent topics within 6sense, right? What we then do is we publish our 6sense segments into Salesforce, which gives us like a twofold kind of approach. Number one, obviously, as marketers, we can then see, okay, cool, what are we influencing in Salesforce, the contacts that are coming in, the pipeline, the meetings, the opportunity rate. And on the flip side, because we're doing that and this same segment is coming into SFDC, this then gets automatically pushed into outreach. So once again, we're trying to enable our SDRs to not spend that much of time being like, oh my God, what contacts do I push in here? Which accounts go in there? It's pretty much semi-automated up until that point. And of course, we can't really hit the start button for them. That would be one part in outreach where they have to actually start a sequence. And then you see the direct mail piece in there, or corporate gifting, e-gifting, since we've been in the pandemic and we can't really send gifts unless you have someone's personal address. We make sure that these links are also custom built and inside their sequences. So at all points, we're thinking, okay, cool. And to be clear, this is not all done by just our ABM team, right? So when we're talking about outreach, we're looking into those metrics, but we have help from our SDR operations team. We have help from our marketing operations teams to be able to make all of this work and be super successful at it. Cool. So quick takeaways on everything that at least here at Snowflake that really makes us successful. Number one being integrated ABM. So like I just said, we also rely and work with all of our cross-functional teams. When it comes to sales, I think what really helps is initially take that back seat. Let them actually tell you, hey, this is also what might be useful if I can see it. And then you fit that little piece of the puzzle in there and say, okay, awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what the ABM team is here to do. So kind of come in after that. Don't force it on them. I know that we're lucky that when I came in here, Hillary had pretty much done all of the heavy lifting when it comes to making sure that we're completely aligned with our RVPs of sales out in the field. Scale or bust. This is more based off of the way that we need to operationalize ourselves as we grow into the one-to-many and being able to personalize at scale. So when we're looking at all of these like campaigns, there are a number of people on the ABM team, there are a number of SDRs, so we all need to be in sync with each other, so be able to have those human processes added there. For those of you who are starting out your ABM journey, you just, I mean, if you're passionate about it and if you have the support of your leadership, go out there and start it, and then slowly start to add on those vendors that are going to match your scaling needs. And then SDR obsession. We would not be this successful without SDRs. I was an SDR in the past. I actually worked with Hillary at a previous company as an SDR who was involved in ABM. So I've seen it on both sides of the coin, but over here, ABM really has to be a part of the SDR motion from day one, whether it's a one-to-one campaign or a one-to-many campaign. I shall pass that over to you now, Millie. Would love to answer a few questions.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. This is really amazing, and thanks for sharing your knowledge here. I could totally see someone watching this webinar and figuring out how to start their own ABM programs. We do have a ton of questions in the chat, so we will try to go through as many as possible. And if we don't get to them, we will reach back out to you and respond to you. So first question, how many accounts per tier are you working with?
So if we go back to the strategic one-to-one layer, we're probably working with, I guess, as a team in specific, we're looking at around 100 to maybe 200. When we're looking at the enterprise scale, we're looking at double of that number. And then, as you guys noticed, for our one too many programmatic campaigns, we have an average of 300 to 400 in the hopper every 8 weeks that are consistently either coming out of it, or we're having them graduate once they move into the right buying stages so that we can push them into one-to-one.
Great. And then related to that, how do you actually choose the target accounts that go into each tier?
All based off of fit and intent when it comes to programmatic campaigns, because like I said, in our one too many programmatic campaigns, we don't have too many contacts within those accounts that have really any meaningful engagement, right? When it comes to the strategic one-to-one layer and the enterprise one-to-one layer, we have to make sure that these accounts that we're going after in ABM, we have our cross-functional approval, our RVPs are aligned with us in sales. So we don't want to be using all of these resources if it's not also super important to them, right? We don't want to be, oh, we can do all of this for you. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, cool, thank you very much. And there's no action on their end.
Right. So it's got to be very coordinated and integrated.
Yep.
So lots of questions. So I'm going to try to go through them quickly. Once you understand what accounts are showing intent, how do you go about finding the contacts so you can run these programmatic outreach?
I'm not quite sure if I'm able to say that, but I'll let you guys know. So obviously our SDRs use their specific set of tools when it comes to net new contacts being added, or if they just need a specific email or a telephone number. But we use a specific vendor that we use to enrich our campaigns. So we actually tell our SDRs, hey, we don't want it to be such that Bob has just come out of an outreach sequence and now you see that, oh, they're actually showing intent and you're going to put him back in. Doesn't look really professional. So we want to add 15, 20, 50 net new contacts in it. And we have a specific vendor to do that.
Okay. Got it. And do your ABM managers write the SDR sequences?
No, we do not do that. SDR team actually has a content committee. So I believe they work with our product marketers and owners of product to be able to identify, hey, this is the issue, and this is what we need to be going after them when we look at the sequences as a whole. We did venture into helping them out with outreach sequences, but at no point do we write those sequences. We offer like, hey, this is the intent, this is what we would like to have there. And one member of the ABM team always sits on that content committee, so we know exactly what's coming in at a future date.
Okay, got it. And I think we have time for one more question. So I noticed demand gen is missing from your integrated campaign approach. How do you agree on swim lanes with demand gen when it comes to deploying emails, and who is sending these ABM account emails?
Oh, amazing question. So over here at Snowflake, we, as I said, that our whole marketing team has one goal, right? So we don't really butt heads. When it comes to emails, when we look at persona-based emails, whether it be for an event that's coming up or an industry-based email, that is something that we leave entirely to our demand gen team. If you're wondering, oh, does Snowflake pull an account out of any demand gen cycles and then do ABM? No, we do not do that, right? We both walk pretty much in the same direction, but we walk parallel to each other and we're not really intersecting with each other. So in a sense, it may seem that we might be double dipping, but it doesn't always work that way, where we have clear distinctions as to, hey, this is what ABM is in charge of and that is what demand gen is in charge of.
Yeah, that's the ideal situation, right? That you're working in parallel and coordinated. So thanks again, Chris. This was really awesome. We learned so much and really appreciate your time. And thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. I hope you learned something.
My pleasure. Thank you, Millie.